Okay, good morning. My name is Brian Craig. I have the pleasure to serve as the Dean of the College of Engineering. First, thank everyone for attending and our distinguished panel that I'll introduce a little more in a minute. First of all, I'd just like to say I hope everyone and your family and friends are safe and healthy. This is a webinar that we decided to put on a couple of weeks ago, talking about addressing some of the concerns that prospective students and current students and those in the workforce that may have started feeling the pressures of the COVID effect on our economy. Just as a little agenda, we'll stick pretty close to this, but not too close probably. We'll start off with Elahor. She is a recent graduate May in chemical engineering, and is been hired by a large local chemical company. And I have her first because she needs to slip out to take care of some pre-employment things this morning, and then we'll follow that up with the meat of the program, the Q&A and panel discussion, and then we'll wrap it up. We all see these headlines about the effect that we're seeing on our economy, and frankly, it's very concerning with the numbers that we see with the folks that are filing for unemployment benefits nationwide, as well as an article that came out just yesterday. The second bullet about Texas oil and gas industry, shedding records of number of jobs. I encourage you to look that up, but I also hope that you balance that with what our panelists have to say this morning. And Elahor is going to give her perspective of, how we're, what's actually facing recent graduates. So as far as a brief introduction, there's a lot of words here. I'm just going to boil it down first, and I just decided to go in reverse alphabetical order just to mix it up a little bit. Todd Staples was named the president of the Texas Oil and Gas Association in November of 2014. As president of the state's oldest and largest trade association representing the industry, Staples is focused on expanding Texoga's presence as the go-to source for reliable and credible oil and gas information. In order to continue a positive growth and environment that oil and natural gas provides for Texas, Texoga must be a modern-day voice for the industry. Prior to Texoga, Todd served as the Texas Agricultural Commissioner, winning 2 statewide elections, and has also served with distinction in the Texas Senate and Texas House of Representatives. Secondly, we have John Mork, the Chief Executive Officer of Energy ID Solutions out of Denver. John and Julie Mork founded the Energy Corporation of America, which grew to be a large privately owned independent energy company with 5,000 wells and over 1 million acres within the U.S. John recently stepped away from leadership of ECA to start his most recent undertaking, Energy ID Solutions, which has, we've talked about this, some really fascinating technology for rapid DNA analysis to help solve problems in the hydrocarbon industry. John's earned a bachelor and master's degree in chemical engineering from USC, served in various capacities as an engineer at Union Oil before founding ECA, Chief Executives Organization, the World's Presidents Organization, and USC School of Engineering Board of Counselors. So quite a impressive career. Third, but not last, Frank Ledzinski, Chief Executive Officer or Executive Chairman of Earthstone Energy out of Houston. Frank brings 48 years of oil and gas experience as the Executive Chairman of Earthstone. Previously served as founder and/or Chief Executive Officer of 8 oil and gas companies, including Oak Valley Resources, Geo Resources, Southern Bay Energy, and the others that you see that are listed. So welcome, panelists. We'll get started first with Elahor. I will stop my share so you come up, Elahor, and share your thoughts on these 2 points.
Good morning. Thank you again, Dean Craig, for allowing me to be on the panel. So the first question was, what are the job prospects for me and a lot of my classmates? And I believe that unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it has put a lot of my classmates at a disadvantage. From what I've seen, if you didn't have an offer before the pandemic, a lot of my classmates are still searching for a full-time job position, or they have decided to delay their graduation date until those job positions are available. And another thing is, a lot of organizations that we usually go to their national conventions, such as NSBE, SWE, AICE, they weren't able to have those conventions. And I know that that's where a lot of students, especially a lot of friends of mine, that's where they usually get their full-time offers. But I also want to use this opportunity to just if there are any seniors that have graduated or any seniors that are going to be graduating in August or maybe in the fall semester, I do want to take this time to just encourage you all and just remind you to just be proactive and be persistent and just not to give up, and to continue to make sure that your interview skills and of course your resume continues to remain on point for when the time comes. Yes. And I know there was a second question on there.
Okay, I think my screen, just some of the keys that you had in being successful, and what skills did you promote when you were interviewing? How were you one of the quote unquote lucky ones?
I feel like one of the keys is to diversify your resume. I feel like this is something very important. As students, something that we're so focused on is our GPA. And your GPA is very, very important. And you should strive to have a high GPA. But your GPA is not the only thing that you need to have on your resume. You want to have organizations on there, whether it's social or professional, but not just try to be a member of an organization, actually try to hold leadership position, because that actually develops different skills and different qualities and characters in you that a lot of companies are looking for. So organizations, volunteer experience, research, study abroad, anything that will make you look like a diverse student. It's okay to have, well, me personally, this is what I feel. It's okay to have a 3.8 GPA and you have all these experiences, you have all these organizations and all these skills, and you are well developed. So I feel like that is one of the keys. And I feel like another thing is to, of course, get experience, which is internships, co-ops. And something that I have to say about that is to try not to be too picky for your first internship. In my experience, I feel like that is the foundation for you to just open doors to different opportunities. And if it is possible, and this is something that you can do, and you come to a point where you have to either choose an internship or delay a graduation date by maybe a semester. Me personally, if this is something that you can do, because not every student can do it, but if it's something that you can do, I would advise doing it, because that's something that I had to do, which provided the opportunity for me to do my co-op with Dow Chemical Company, which is who I'll actually be working for after I graduate. And another thing is just not to give up, keep applying. Even if you receive rejection letters, you receive, sorry, you don't meet our match, sorry, you're not the fit that we're looking for, or you don't even get a response, keep applying and don't give up. Because a lot of I received so many rejection letters, but all you need is that one. So just keep going, don't give up, and keep pushing. So I feel like those were some of the keys to help landing the job.
Well, thank you. That's great. That's great. Great insight. Good luck with your pre-employment stuff, Elahor, and good luck in your future career. And don't forget about us here at Lamar. One of the things that we're also offering just quickly is, kind of an expedited way that students can enter into graduate school. I mean, right now, students are unsuccessful in getting a job, considering graduate school, we waive the GRE, especially for Lamar graduates that you graduated out of an ABET accredited program. We've even waived the application fee. So, it's basically seamless to enroll and start as early as this summer or, in the fall. We also have some scholarships that may be available to you called the Continuing Cardinal Scholarship to help move that process along. So we'll move into the panel of industry experts, and it's kind of open, kind of round robin. I did want to start with a question, I guess, more or less directed towards Todd, but everybody, please jump in. From your perspective, Todd, how is the oil and gas industry adjusting given the current market situation?
Well, it's been a tough environment. There's no doubt about it. We facing the pandemic of COVID-19 and the shrinkage of demand for the product at a time when the second and third largest nations in the world entered a war that led to oversupply. It created a catastrophic situation, quite frankly, that is both unprecedented and historic. And the industry really immediately responded to these changing dynamic circumstances. I mean, no matter what goes on in life, no matter what goes in the world, there's two laws that are very fundamental to everything that we do. It's the law of supply and demand. And these intersection of supply and demand is what is where prices are established. And so we had a shrinkage of demand, we had an excess supply, prices plummeted, and the industry has responded. They did that on an operational basis as individual companies that made decisions that were necessary for them to survive this crisis. They immediately started reducing capital expenditures that were planned for 2020. In fact, we've measured CapEx reductions in excess of $61 billion thus far. They started reducing their rig count. The rig count is down 60 to 70% of what it was a year ago at this time. Unfortunately, employment levels are impacted because of the contraction of the activities in the marketplace. And so the industry responded individually to adjust to these new market circumstances and to allow for the normalization of supply and demand. Now, I will tell you that not only has the industry done that, but the industry has come together in a very strong and powerful way, I think, to help reopen our economy. We know that Governor Abbott created the strike force to reopen Texas. I was appointed as a leader for the energy work group. We have gotten information from member companies and other companies throughout Texas engaged in oil and gas that submitted those ideas to Governor Abbott. Appreciate his leadership there. Railroad Commission Chairman Wayne Christian has formed the Blue Ribbon Task Force for Oil Economic Recovery. We put together about 4 dozen different recommendations to the Railroad Commission and to other state agencies that could be looked at as a way to provide operational flexibility, things about permitting, things about timelines, and all of that was done with the clear and direct purpose to maintain health, safety, and the environment as our member companies are operating. So it's been an adjustment process. It's good to see the markets responding to the changes that individual companies and other nations have been doing as well. And our market-based system has made Texas the energy capital of the world. And it's this market-based system that we have maintained throughout this calamity that we're facing that is going to establish us and move us forward. So we have a ways to go, but that's what the industry is doing to survive and to overcome the difficulties that they're facing.
Thank you. Frank or John, anything?
Yeah, I might add to that, Brian. All of that's all of that's very true. First, congratulations to Elahor for graduating and getting a job. I think the reason that I went into accounting and finance is that I struggled through the introductory chemistry courses. So there you have that. You know, before I get into adding something, you know, I do want to say that the engineering and the technical sciences across all sectors of the energy industry, being upstream, midstream, downstream, et cetera, are the backbone of what we do and the backbone of how we, as a industry, adapt to changing markets, changing environments, et cetera. So I encourage everybody to keep the faith during this downturn and be persistent and keep pursuing your goals. Now, that said, the one other thing that I'll add to Todd's commentary is the response of the industry to balance demand and supply. There have been massive amounts of voluntary shut-ins, curtailments, combined by, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Initiated by all the companies that are operating domestically, large or small. We're on the smaller side of this. We have less than 100 people. Heck, we shut in 75% of our production in May. We'll bring some on in June. We'll bring some more on. That response has helped eliminate some of the fear in the marketplaces. You know, at the end of April, we saw negative oil prices. You had to pay people to take your barrels. That was a function of people, you know, thinking that we're going to run out of storage, that the production's not going to have any place to go, okay? So the industry responded quickly. The prices have recovered a bit since then. We didn't see a negative price environment here on the 20th of May when that contract closes out. So there's other there's another significant fast response that the industry made to this current collapse.
Thank you, John.
I agree with all that's been said here. Would add a couple of things, mainly around perspective. It's darn hard to have perspective when you've been furloughed or laid off and you've been in your home for the last month or two and that kind of thing. But really the difficulty, the price difficulty has already been mentioned. It's caused by two things, political and pandemic, and both will pass very, very quickly. The people who were causing this war on volumes need higher prices more than the average operator in the US, and they've caused their problem, and it will be there. The cycle time on drilling shale wells is so much quicker than the cycle time on major oil field development that we have a huge advantage there. But let's have perspective for the industry. The industry will be totally unhurt by this situation, but individuals in the industry will be devastated. If you're the company that goes bankrupt, your wells aren't plugged. There's just someone who takes them over and operates them. So the industry will stay the same, but it won't do any good for the employees or the company that's gone bankrupt. So it's going to be difficult for individual companies, but for the industry and therefore for future employment and that kind of thing, I think it will be fine. I think technology is going to affect that a little bit. Look, we're having this wonderful deal today by Zoom, which if you talk to any of us a month and a half or 2 months ago, we just said, what the heck is Zoom?
Thank you. Well, that segues into another important question. Based on your history, and I know that for the folks that are watching the webinar, it's amazing that these three young men combined can collectively have over 100 years of experience, but that's what we're talking about with this this group. Tell us how the industry has rebounded from, you know, this is not our first challenge. It may be one of our largest for sure, but how has the industry rebounded from other challenging situations? And that's just open to first one who wants to take it.
Well, I'll go ahead and start since I got the most gray hair on the panel. I was talking to our current CEO yesterday. This might be interesting to students and graduating students. And he graduated in 1986, which was, I got started, 12 or 13 years before then, but 1986 was actually the first industry collapse that I experienced as an independent. Anyway, our CEO graduated in 1986 out of University of Wyoming. There were 33 people in the graduating class. Only 3 of them got jobs. So it was a disaster, just like we have here. The advice that Elahor gave was exactly what he said he did, except that he had a family already and took a job at UPS, but to feed the family. And I'm going somewhere with this. But the persistence and the dedication and the hard work and staying in touch with prospective employers in the industry is what people have to do. So getting back to the question, our industry is just amazing, okay? It's amazing in terms of its adaptability. It's amazing in terms of its ability to deal with crises. Obviously, the volatility of prices. This is not the first industry collapse we've had. There's been many. So what do? We adapt just like the industry's done now with the curtailments and with cutting capital expenditures. The resource plays, the shale plays across the whole board. We've driven, just think about the technology and the application of technology. Who in their right mind would have thought that 15 years ago we'd be drilling, 10,000 feet vertical wells and 10,000 feet or 15,000 feet horizontal wells and fracking the bejesus out of them to establish production. So I really think that if the prices stay low, I think that, if the industry can get into the 40s, a lot of the production's going to start coming back, but the industry will apply discipline that it's learned and adaptability that it's learned and figure out how to make money and serve the American population by producing a vital energy source. It's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Frank, I agree with you. I think that again, I talk about perspective, but the hydrocarbon energy industry consumes 9.5% of world GDP, biggest in the world industry, only 6% in the US. And people say, well, how is that possible? Because the US uses the most energy, but is the most efficient. And that 3.5% doesn't seem like much, but that's essentially for a family of 4, a modest mortgage payment or a new free car every 4 years. So it makes a huge difference. And this is what the industry is going to do. It will very, very shortly come back to a new norm somewhere. I don't know whether it's $40 or $50 a barrel or something like that. But the scale of the shale is unbelievable. I know that the Marcellus now produces roughly 1/3 of the gas in the US. A little over a decade ago, it didn't make enough gas to barbecue lunch. And as nearly as we can tell, it's only between 7 and 10% developed. We think the shale in the US contains with current technology, somewhere between 10 and 20 times the recoverable oil of all the conventional fields. This is going to be going on for years and years and years. And these kids who are in school now, their grandkids will be in this industry. And there'll be ups and downs again in the future.
Yeah, just to add on to John and Frank's comments that are spot on, and Elahor, to address something that you said about if you haven't gotten a job offer before the pandemic hit that the job offers have been slim. I think some things we need to keep in perspective is that oil and natural gas is not alone in the difficult economic crisis. You look at airlines, you look at restaurants, you look at retail, it is across the board. The impact has been devastating when you've had the world economy come to a screeching halt overnight, essentially. So that's created very unique situations. When you think about oil and natural gas and the history and what has occurred, oil and natural gas are commodities. And commodities are by nature, have a cyclical nature. In our system, it is, even though some countries are not free market based, the global marketplace is controlled by consumers and how much consumers want to use of a product. Therefore, whether it's cotton or cattle or corn or oil and natural gas, it's a commodity, it ebbs and flows. And if you look at the history, we have had a series of peaks and valleys. Production rises, prices fall, production contracts, prices rise again. And so we know that oil and natural gas, though, is becoming more of a manufacturing process. And as we look at our retail enterprises and we see the big box stores, we know that we've seen a transition to some extent of creating economies of scale, people finding their spot in this production process. And so, you know, going to this manufacturing process, we kind of know where oil and natural gas is located today. Wildcatting is not as much as it used to be. There's still some of that as returns, but as technology has advanced, it's given operators a lot more certainty to know where they're going, know where how to access those hydrocarbons. And so the most recent downturn we can look at in talking about rebounding of this industry was 2014. We had a huge peak. We had a longer downward slope on pricing, and industry was a little slower to respond. I think Frank alluded and commented on shut-ins that are occurring in addition to the CapEx reductions and the rig reductions. And so industry has responded quicker. In 2014, we had a big drop off in dollars that were paid to state and local governments in 2015 and in 2016, but 2017, we saw a rebound. 2019 was the biggest year ever in terms of the dollars that were paid in to Texas local governments and state governments. And so I think a rebound will occur. I think we are in a global marketplace, so there's some things that we cannot insulate ourselves from. But you know, if you're thinking about a career in oil and gas, it's a good place to be. The world has a need for energy, and oil and natural gas is going to be a big part of that. And the last thing, or as a chemistry major, I just want you to know I had a dear friend of mine that liked chemistry so much in college, he took his chemistry course twice. It was involuntary, but that's what happened. So those of you that are in school, he's done great and been very successful, but we all have challenges, and we are having challenges right now in this industry.
Okay, thank you all.
Yep. I gotta say, I can testify to that. I think I had to take introductory chemistry twice, also, along with elementary functions, and there you have it. So,
to the panel, you know, oftentimes, you know, out of crisis, out of need, you know, the U.S. economy steps up and companies step up and, you know, develop some fascinating and amazing new technologies. Do you, as a group, you know, what sort of technologies are you maybe anticipating? Whether it's, you know, horizontal, you know, technology with regards to horizontal drilling and multi-stage fracking, or the digital transformation, or, you know, the artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, optimization, you know, just whatever, you know, you think this might drive. And I ask that for two reasons. One, you know, so the students might get a better perspective of, you know, what they may need to take, but also from the university's perspective, where might we need to start focusing more as we better prepare our students, while they're students for their future career.
Yeah, I'll open that up because not to do anything different than the other members. We struggle with this every day, and Earthstone is our latest of many companies. Every other one was built up and sold off at a profit to our investors. And we got Earthstone going in December of 14, just when everything started crashing again. Okay, so since then, what's amazing to me, particularly with the younger technical professionals we have, is there is generally the knowledge in the context of horizontal drilling. It's making the tools better, making the tools smarter, getting downhole information up to the surface, quickly, understanding it. I mean, you step into a drilling rig these days, it's like going into, a Star Wars vehicle, for gosh sakes, back from where we started off. The other thing is the application of computer technology, which is, some of our younger engineers, the amount of data that they can handle and manipulate and apply their engineering skills to. And I'm talking about in the Permian Basin, for example, or in any shale play. I'm talking about taking well results, production information, petrophysical information, geological information, all the stuff that's out there, and manipulating this into huge databases to come up with and y'all gonna have to help me because I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'd have to get Juan or one of our folks to help me out with this, but to come up with ways to drill our wells more efficiently, and importantly, frack those wells efficiently. And that leads to getting the cost down, the economics up, and driving the required price down into the 40s, or, as we said, 40s or 50s or whatever have you. So it's not only the invention of the new technology, it's the better application of existing technology. And I'm getting way off into something I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll turn it over to you guys.
Frank, this is John. I really agree with you, and maybe add a little flavor to it. If you look at the hydrocarbon industry, it's been a leader in technology for its entire history. I actually met the family that was instrumental in cable tool drilling by developing bits back in Appalachia. But then Howard Hughes changed the entire world in the late 20s and the early 30s when he invented the rotary bit. And you saw what happened. It allowed for deeper, faster, and way cheaper drilling. And then you had things like seismic, and then 3D seismic caused by computer management. At one time, we were doing stuff in our office that 10 years earlier you couldn't have done on a Cray computer. It's that kind of thing. I'm fortunate enough to sit on 2 different research universities, energy institutes, and we study all types of energy. And I can tell you, for the first quarter century of this millennium, no invention will compare, or energy innovation, with horizontal drilling and hydrofracturing. And this is fascinating because other great breakthroughs in history, whether it be Edison and the light bulb, or Madame Curie and radiation, or Pasteur and bacteria, that kind of thing, all came from big research facilities. And this is a thing that's so exciting for students coming out. This whole invention of horizontal drilling and slickwater fracking came from small companies sharing and combining information and getting better. I am convinced, if the truth be known, that on every horizontal well, about 5% of the cost is actually R&D. And you gain knowledge every time. And that's why if we all discovered, you name it, Prudhoe Bay, with today's technology, the first well, or the first half a dozen wells, one would be the best well ever drilled in the field. With horizontal drilling, in one particular field in Appalachia that we're in, we're into the 100th and some well, and they're better than the first wells because you keep adding information to it. You keep getting better at what you're doing, reducing costs, getting more value for your dollars. So I think there's an incredible opportunity really for young people, smart young engineers, to be on the cutting edge of developing new things that are going to help the whole industry.
I think John and Frank have certainly hit on the key to the survivability of this industry, and those are operational improvements and operational enhancements that are made available from breakthroughs in technology. I come in a little bit different angle. When I think about oil and gas companies today, I see them as information and technology companies, and they really are utilizing breakthroughs. And if you're a student that's about to enter the workforce or continue your education that Dr. Craig talked about, or you're thinking about entering your educational opportunities and which area to go, I see the industry, in addition to maintaining their competitiveness through operational enhancements that are emboldened by technological advancements, environmental progress and improving environmental performance is also a priority of many companies today. And the entire industry is really embracing that. Cleaner burning engines, cleaner burning fuels, leak detection and repair equipment, digitization of the process itself so that this information can be utilized and improve the environmental performance is a goal that all of society shares. And if you're a student thinking about opportunities that you might be looking at, there is a wide open field of bright minds that can come together and to develop these processes and to utilize technology to improve environmental performance. That also helps improve the bottom line, that makes certain you can survive during these difficult times. And industries are sharing this information. The API, American Petroleum Institute, has developed the environmental partnership where they're developing best practices to share with companies across the world to lower methane emissions. They're focused on technological breakthroughs there. In Texas, our industry has come together and we've started the Texas Methane and Flaring Coalition to look for ways to both reduce methane emissions and reduce flaring, and looking at how technology can make that happen and how best practices can be shared. And so these are some great breakthroughs, and technology is the really cornerstone of it all.
Great, thank you.
Let me add, Brian, let me add one thing to that I didn't think about until Todd mentioned it, is the environmental situation. You know, the industry, in my mind, does not get credit for its safety record and for its environmental record, okay? The industry is very capital intensive, whether it's midstream or whether it's upstream or downstream, very capital intensive. All of the capital that's out there, which is very, very limited right now, but all of the mutual funds and the hedge funds and the investors and so forth are looking to what's called ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, okay? The environmental part, the environmental part is an important part along with diversity, along with proper corporate governance and things like that. But the whole thing about environmental safety, methane, vapor recovery, efficiency, that's going to even get bigger and bigger and bigger, because it's a necessary thing to do for our environment, but an absolutely necessary thing to do if you want to try to raise capital when available.
Great, thank you. Just keeping an eye on the time, so we're good. So are there any specific events or lessons that you may have experienced in the past, whether personally or just being so experienced in the industry that we can look to when we're assessing the future opportunities in upstream, midstream, downstream, any of it?
Well, I would say new technology and completely different technology is going to make the industry so much more efficient. I had a very long career in the upstream and midstream oil and gas and distribution business, and then quit a couple years to go into the biotech business. And, you know, people, since they legalized that green stuff up here in Colorado, many people ask me, John, are you using too much of that green stuff to get out of a good business and go into biotech? And I said, well, no, I don't use that, but it does seem a little different. And what, through rapid DNA analysis, we are, I think, will fundamentally change the way the energy business is done, and for very positive. All of us know a little bit about DNA, and we know that DNA differentiates humans. My DNA is going to be different than Frank's or Todd's or Brian's and that. But few people know that oil actually has DNA. And we can uniquely identify oil, bioidentify it with the DNA. And that solves some problems. And also, the microbes that cause 90% of corrosion in the oil field have DNA. And corrosion is really poorly handled by the industry because we don't do much until we see evidence of it. If we see a pit in the pipeline, or the pipeline's leaking, or the well scaled up or something, we do something. Now, with this, you'll be able to sample the fluids the first day, see what microbes are there, and prevent corrosion and scaling in that. But other huge areas, since you can bioidentify oil without getting through all the details, it would be quite possible to differentiate where production is coming in frac jobs. As Frank, you know now, you know you're getting 80% of your production from 20% of your perfs, and you just don't know what 20%. I think this system with bioidentifying oil with the DNA will allow you to figure out which of your perfs are good. So what I think, and you know, I'm not saying anything new, that 2/3 of the cost of your horizontal well is completion. If you could cut the frac in half and get 90% as much oil, you would cut your well cost by 1/3 and get 90% as much oil. It'll fundamentally change things. And it's this kind of changes in technology that I think we're seeing that are really beyond what we're thinking about. Again, 15 years ago, we said, holy smokes, 99% of new drilling is going to be horizontal and fractured in shales. When I was in school in reservoir engineering, they taught me that shales were bad things, and the good reservoirs shaled out. Now we know where all the shale is and we hunt it. So anyway, I think there's going to be technologies developed here in the US, and this is just one that I'm working with, that will absolutely fundamentally change things and make this an exciting place for young people to work.
Brian, I want to follow up on John's comments. You know, when I think about what we've been through before, I see a lot of headlines today that question the future of this industry. And that really, you know, where will production occur? What will the demand levels be as we move forward as a society? A couple of things to think about when I think about that topic. One is, if oil is going to be produced anywhere in the world, I think Texas is going to play a leading role. A few of the reasons there is because we have a stable governance structure that welcomes capital, because our leaders know that means jobs for our citizens. We think that's important. We have an industry that actually supports a science-based regulatory approach. We recognize that rules and regulations are important, that people need to be held accountable to comply, and it needs to be fair, it needs to be predictable, and it needs to be science-based. And so those are strong things. Another reason that Texas is going to be a player no matter what, and the job market will be as good here or better than anywhere else, is what I like to refer to as the 4 Ps. If you think about Texas, we have production, we have pipelines, we have processing, and we have ports. This level of infrastructure of tying together the upstream operations and production to our midstream pipelines that moves that product, whether it's to a port or a refinery to be processed, or moving it to the convenience store so you can fill your automobile up with fuel. We have the 4 Ps that we have in Texas that not everyone has. And that's going to position us to be very, very strong as we look at the future need for oil and natural gas. And I say the future need, we hear a lot about energy transition today, and we are transitioning. When I think about energy transition, though, I think about transitioning to a lower emissions future, being more sensitive to the product that we produce and how that product is used. But the reality is our product is indispensable. Let me say that again. Oil and natural gas is indispensable to our daily lives. 96% of the products that we use each and every day has a component of oil and natural gas. The video screens that we're participating here today has a component of oil and natural gas. Our smartphones, the medical devices, the hand sanitizer that we all have a jug of and carry with us everywhere we go, a component of oil and natural gas. And so it's from medicines to makeups to tires to fire retardant suits, oil and natural gas plays a role. And as we move forward, as our population continues to grow, we're going to have a need for energy, and oil and natural gas will be a part of that energy mix. Will energy sources change? You bet. They have over the history of mankind. There's no reason to think, as we've been focused on information and technology and the changes that are occurring, that we won't see a shift of some sort in energy, just as we've seen the shift in energy production. But oil and natural gas will be a part of that as we move forward. And it's an exciting time and exciting future for those in the field.
Todd, let me back up exactly what you're saying with a little bit of perspective. And these numbers are a little old, so they've all improved a little bit. But the cost per kilowatt hour for wind, fully backed up by wind, not backed up by coal or something else, is right at 12 cents a kilowatt hour. The cost of solar photovoltaic, fully backed up, is more like 15 cents a kilowatt hour. The cost for shale gas is a half a cent per kilowatt hour. So the problem, we've reset the whole target on this thing. And one of the reasons so much manufacturing is moving from California to Texas is because you don't have, electricity costs twice as much, and gasoline for your car costs twice as much in California as it does in Texas. So you have such a huge cost advantage on this that unless the United States decides that it doesn't care the cost of energy, which, by the way, for all of us wealthy people, energy isn't a particularly important part of our budget. But if you're living at the poverty level, it's the most unfair tax, because today it's about 13 or 14% of your total budget embedded in everything from the ice cream cone you had yesterday afternoon to how you got to work today and how you heat your home. And it's regressive, and it just crushes the poor side of the people in the U.S. Said enough. Thank you.
All right, we're getting pretty close, but if any of you wanted to just share anything else for our students, our prospective students, and others that are watching, just to reiterate the fact that some of you have already mentioned, that the oil and gas industry is still a very viable choice, a very smart choice. I mean, as the Dean of Engineering, I like to, especially Dean of Engineering at a university in Beaumont, Texas, the oil and gas capital in some senses, that, an engineering degree doesn't mean that you're going to go work for, the refinery, but that's still a great choice. I mean, engineering can take, students anywhere that they want to go, to the medical field, and beyond, to any industry. But specifically with, would you recommend say, your son or daughter, or grandson or granddaughter to still, if they're in high school, still, you know, be interested in pursuing an education that would lead them to the oil and gas industry?
Yeah, let me take that. You know, over close to 50 years and more than 35 of being independent, I've had the luxury of being able to hire talented younger people while keeping a group together that had experience. Our senior officers have been with me 20 or 30 years, okay? And collectively, you know, when we're adding people, we're not only looking for their education and talent, but we're looking for their attitude also. What's kind of amazing to me is, you know, you don't have to be a petroleum engineer to excel at petroleum engineering. You don't have to be a mechanic, you know, you can be a mechanical engineer. We've hired mechanical engineers, we've hired chemical engineers. You know, we're not Exxon, so we haven't hired that many over the years, but we've tried to hire the right people with the right attitude and with a desire to learn, okay? And not only a desire to learn, a desire to communicate within the organization if they have good ideas and so forth. So my only word of advice, and I get this, you know, from some of our younger people in the organization, is you know, when you do get a job, get your head down, do your job the best of your ability, learn as much as you can. As you proceed and as the job market may improve or so on, look for a company that culturally you fit into, where you're a member of the team, if you will, or a member of the asset management team, and keep that learning experience going on. And with good attitude, cooperation, communications, that's the skill set that you need, other than the GPA and the technical background. That's my 2 cents.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, just to wrap up, it's been great being with you today. I appreciate the leadership of Lamar, and I certainly am always inspired when I hear people like Frank and John, entrepreneurs that have created jobs for people all across this country. That's really the strength of our nation. And if you're a student, no matter what phase of a student, we're all still students of life. Oil and gas needs everyone: hydrologists, seismologists, geologists, accountants, lawyers, communication specialists. I'm fortunate to work with some of the smallest companies in Texas to some of the biggest companies in the world that are in oil and natural gas. And I see a wide variety of talent that is permeated throughout this industry. And so no matter what your area of specialty might be, there is a place for you. And we need the best and the brightest, because this industry is indispensable to our nation. Energy security is national security. There is no other way about it. Energy security is national security. And so we need the best and brightest in this field. And I'll close with this to complement what Frank said. When I was in high school, I heard a guy give a speech that said it's your attitude, not your aptitude, that ultimately determines your altitude in life. It's your attitude, not your aptitude, that ultimately determines your how far you go in life. So keep that in mind, and wish you all the best.
Let me close with what I think is a little bit of perspective too. If you look, we hear many problems in the United States on the news and this and that. But if you look, the United States has the best land and legal system in the world. If you're in a dispute, you can actually get it resolved. We have the best infrastructure in the world, and from pipelines to railroads to roads and that. We have the best education system, and Lamar's at the top there in the world. We have the best capital allocation system. Frank, you know this. Frankly, in the US, if you have a good idea, you can get capital for it. We have now the cheapest energy in the world. Things are going to be going back in the near future to a huge economic boom, manufacturing boom in the United States. and we're going to love that. There's going to be great jobs and that kind of thing. And the reason I think it's so important or advantageous to get an engineering degree, if you look, I tell young kids that if you get a degree in engineering, you can take risks because you can always be employed. And if you look for all of the hard work and the chemistry and all that, what engineering really teaches you is, here's a problem, find a solution. And if you're a good problem solver, you move up very, very rapidly within a company. And quite frankly, most of the very successful engineers I know aren't engineers anymore. They've been made to solve more problems, and their title tends often to be COO or CEO. So I would encourage all of the kids who see this and listen to it to strongly consider an engineering degree, and sure, Lamar is a great place to get one. Thank you, Todd and Frank, and of course, Brian, for hosting us.
Well, thank you. We're about wrapped up. I greatly appreciative of our panel taking the time to share their knowledge. I will stay around a little bit and actually answer some questions that have been coming up that I just haven't been able to answer during this live event. But also I'd like to share this screen here just for some further information for the participants, and shows our degree options and things like that. So with that, thank you all, and we will keep in touch. Go ahead. Did you have a question, Dean?
Well, I did, but honestly, I had a little trouble connecting in the beginning. So if you covered it already, I apologize for asking. But what would you tell a student or someone considering Lamar, why Lamar for engineering?
Well, one of the primary reasons is our return on investment, our relatively lower tuition and overall cost of attending, the quality of education that we offer here, and then our well above national average in starting salaries, particularly in engineering. We consistently get ranked in the top top 5 anyway, as high as number 2 in the nation for what's actually some degree programs, number 1 in the nation for return on investment. And that's one of the key things. Also, our students, you're taught by, fully, full-time faculty, very few graduate assistants, or teaching courses. Of course, they help with courses and are instrumental to the education of our students. But, you're taught by, true faculty professionals in the large bulk of your courses, unlike maybe some other universities that do utilize teaching assistants more than Lamar does.
Thank you, Brian. If I were a student looking, an engineering student, or wanted to enter the field of engineering, I think it would be a great opportunity to attend Lamar. Thanks.
Dean, it's never too late.
Yes, it is.
How many of our graduating seniors don't have a job offer?
Well, yours was the question I was typing, but I can speak a lot faster than I can type with my 2-finger typing. Well, right now it's a little hard to tell. It's so early, since or so soon after graduation, and the only real source of information that I have are 2. One, we have, essentially every graduating senior complete a senior exit survey. And one of the questions, or some of the questions, do deal with employment of their future, and if they have a job, how many interviews did they have, how many offers did they receive, and that type of stuff. so that's one source of information. The other is simply talking to students. Now, of course, with our campus, our campus isn't closed, but there's very little activity going on campus. So I don't see a whole lot of students, but the ones that I've talked to, I was actually pleasantly surprised that, that they were, all still on course to be gainfully employed. I've heard some examples of students who had a job offer and then had it rescinded. But with regards to the senior exit survey, I looked at this year, and this was just a real quick look because, because I just haven't had the time to really look at it versus the last 3 or 4 years. I got my hands on those too. And there is a decrease, but it wasn't as drastic as I guess I anticipated, the decrease of number of students that have job offers in hand. So it's a survey, senior exit survey, and surveys are only as good as surveys are and have their limitations. And then B, just it's a little harder to communicate with students. But that makes me think of something that we might I might ask Haley to do, is to send out a questionnaire, brief questionnaire, real to our May graduates, just specifically on their job prospects, to get a better grip on that. So that's as good as I can answer the question, Larry.
Okay.
That's obviously is the primary reason that we've gone on such a campaign of suggesting that students take a serious look at graduate school right now if they're unable to secure a job, even if it's just this summer or maybe the summer and fall, and then they find employment. It'll benefit them to advance their education, but B, it'll also, it's a lot better for your resume to say, currently enrolled in graduate school than it is, not to have a gap between the time you graduated and when you're looking for a job. And we made it so much easier, the application and acceptance process, especially for our graduates, since we already have all of the information that we need, to make the decision for admission. And it's very quick. It's, again, it's free to apply now. We waived, it was a university decision to waive that fee. And then, of course, our policy of students graduating with a bachelor's of science out of an ABET accredited engineering program is to waive the GRE. So that's not a hurdle either.
Hey, Dr. Craig.
Yes.
Hey, this is C.O. Ross. How you guys doing today?
Hey, doing well. Sad to see the mission scrubbed yesterday, but certainly understand.
Yeah, well, things like that happen. You've gotten kind of used to that, just trying to make sure we get it off the right way, But we'll give it a shot again at about 3:20, 3:22 on Saturday. So you guys, are they still doing internships on the oil and gas side? Those kind of things like that with some of the oil and gas industries? Do they know that?
Yeah, kind of the same bag as Larry had asked a question about our graduates getting jobs. We're still having, some students actually, get internships or continue their internships, but also, there simply are fewer opportunities. And, we've, just the industry as a whole, it's just kind of not collapsed, but contracted, where, they are worried about, today and tomorrow. And frankly, in some cases, survival. So it's a mixed bag. but that's, and again, we just don't have the level of communication, with our students as we normally do when our campus is full of students.
Right.
We're providing opportunities like this for students. We do a lot of outreach for, future students, both at the undergraduate level and the graduate level through technology. But I probably need to add that to Haley's survey, or another survey, asking specifically our students specifically about internships to get a better grasp of that. So that's as good as I can answer the question right now, CL.
Okay, well, good. Thanks, appreciate it.
NASA have any internships available?
Well, we're still doing those. We do it through the, it's two different types. One is through a pathways program, and one is through an independent program. I think it's called Nexus. I can't remember. I have to look that one up. But I know the pathways program is kind of how I try to course the students to get that one, primarily because once you get into that program, you're actually hired by NASA, and you start your federal service the day you start interning. And if you decide to work with them after you graduate, then it tacks on to that. Or if you decide to go work somewhere else, then that's fine too. But you don't have to do another interview. I mean, you don't have to do applications or anything like that. As a matter of fact, since we've been on this COVID-19 break, I think right around the spring break time, I was on an interview panel for interns, and I think I interviewed 25 in 2 days.
Wow.
And I think we might have selected around maybe 8. I can't remember how many. This went overall the whole Johnson Space Center. So it was my directorate, which was Safety and Mission Assurance. It was Space and Life Sciences, Engineering Directorate, which has all the testing and development and design and development areas. So yeah, we're still actively doing that here.
Great to hear. I'm looking to see who's online still. We still have a few attendees that are not Lamar folks, so if they have any questions, otherwise we'll sign off here shortly.
Okay. Well, I have to punch out in about 10 minutes. I have a 10 o'clock meeting with some docs and a few guys. We were working on a proposal to help some astronauts with some of the training programs that we have over here. So.
Well, thank you for attending, CL.
Well, I appreciate it. It was a very interesting conversation.
So 3:22 Central Time on Saturday?
On Saturday, yeah. That's the next window of opportunity that we have. Mm-hmm.
And for the few that are still...
That one, we probably won't go till June, or sometime in second week of June, right before Father's Day or something like that.
Oh, wow. For those who are still online, we're talking about the launch, the NASA launch that got scrubbed yesterday due to weather. And it's rescheduled for 3:22 Central Time this Saturday.
That's correct. So it'll be interesting. Actually, if you saw the interview on CNN with this astronaut named Rex Wilhelm, I don't know if you guys saw that. It might have been on Fox News as well as a Weather Channel. Rex and I work together on a daily basis. He's kind of like my deputy director, so he's a really nice guy. A really, really smart guy too. A really nice guy. But he was the last shuttle astronaut, one of the last shuttle astronauts to fly after we retired the shuttle program. And that was like almost 10 years ago, 9.5, 10 years ago. So this is kind of somewhat monumental in terms of we will be launching humans from the U.S. back to space. And that's, you know, we hadn't done that since we had the shuttle program. And save a little money that way, because Russia charges us astronomically for every seat that we fly on their space vehicle. I think it's run like around $20 million a seat or something like that. And it doubled the day after we retired shuttle.
Oh, well, of course.
So we'll see. So hopefully we can get that up and down, and we'll get some confidence in that program.
Okay, let's see. It looks like the chat answers have been answered, except for Larry's, which I was typing, but I answered him live. So I'm going to sign off, everybody, and thank you for attending, and we'll do some more of these things.